Hey, this is Troy Ericson. Welcome to episode 15 of the Secrets of Scale podcast. Today, I have a friend of mine on with me today, answer some really interesting life and business questions. Actually followed him for quite a while, met him at an event, and we've connected since then. I think he's a really genuine, good guy. So Tanner Chidester, welcome to the podcast.
Dude, perfect. Last name was absolutely on point. So I'm going to give you the best show of your life. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Now, I originally, found you through Facebook ads. My roommate at the time, Jason Wojo, I think had a call. And then my girlfriend, Julia, came to your event. And I've gotten to know you as like a really big fitness entrepreneur, but you have like a lot of other lessons as well. Could you talk a little bit about like how you got into this whole internet marketing world?
Yeah, dude. Crazy story. So I grew up in a household, 7 kids. Dad was a teacher. Dad worked really hard. Really growing up, didn't get along with my parents as much as I wish I had, because they're very religious, very spiritual. Not that that's bad. They're just, kind of like do this, do that. And they didn't really give me a lot of stuff. And so as I grew up, I was kind of a weird kid. I had 2 older sisters. We played a lot of dress up and so forth. And so it didn't really do me a lot of favors in school. But I really got into sports because I got bullied. And so I started lifting weights so I could kind of beat kids up. I was 12 years old, going to the gym at like 5 in the morning. And then my sisters would go to Bible study before school. So my mom would take me and then pick me up and take me to school, and I'd be like sweaty and stuff. But that was kind of a trajectory for me because I saw myself put in hard work for 3 months. It was really painful. For anyone who like hasn't ever worked out before consistently, the first, 3 months, it's like anything. It's 10 times more painful than when your body adjusts. It's like anything. And so that kind of propelled me into sports. And I took sports very seriously from about 12 to 22, where like 6 to 9 hours a day. I mean, I just eat, breathe, live sports. I just want to play in the NFL more than anything. And then when I played a little bit of Division I football, and then, I had a million injuries. I also don't think I was good enough. I was able to play with a couple first round draft picks. They were just freaks of nature, 6'8", 280, ran 4.4s. I mean, nuts. And so when that ended, I was happy for about 6 months because it was the first time I had a break in my life. But then I quickly became bored. And I just remember thinking, man, dude, if this is the rest of my life, like, that, how depressing is that? That's how I felt. And so I went and had lunch with a friend of my dad named David Fry, and he is connected to Russell Brunson. He married Russell's cousin, one of them. Her name's Ingrid. And he basically was trying to get me back into church. And his deal was like, hey, dude, I'll show you, how to build a business online if you go to church. And I was like, oh, sure, dude. I didn't do it. I feel bad to this day. Like I really didn't hold up my end. But I spent the next year and a half not making any money, but he taught me A to Z, like stuff that like you help people with and others, like email marketing and sales and like building a funnel, just all this tech stuff that was so foreign to me. And I didn't make any money, but that really was kind of a stepping stone. So at this point, about 23, I leave. I'm kind of feeling like a loser. I'm still at home, like, dude, I need to like go out and set my own way. So I move out. And I'm still struggling. I'm doing door-to-door sales. I'm doing serving at Olive Garden, and I'm just still not going anywhere. So, I turned 25. I see an ad on Facebook similar to probably what people see in me sometimes. Click on it, and it's like how to build an online fitness business. I don't know anything about high ticket sales or high pressure sales. I get on, guy totally backs me into a $5,000 deal. I was scared shitless. And the rest is history. And then from there, like I learned high ticket sales. I just was like, wow. So just raise my prices. And because I'd done door to door and been a server and learned the back end funnels of like click funnels and, emails and stuff. From there, I did $1 million in a year and then just blew up after that. So it was, I guess like it was an overnight success, but like all these things before were preparing me and I didn't really know. So it was a huge blessing in disguise.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I've seen, obviously your ads a lot and heard your story about like Olive Garden, and you even have a picture of like yourself, like a really old car. Yeah. And you're like, this is me back when I started out. So what were some of those things that you learned initially about like fitness coaching and business that helped you get from the point of like really struggling to making millions of dollars a month? I know there's a lot to it, but
yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me was just like the 2 biggest things was just one is, learning high ticket sales, like I didn't think, I thought people are so full of it when they said like people will pay you $1,500, $3,000 a month. And I'm like, dude, I can barely get people to buy 50. But it's just the fact of getting people on the phone. And because I've done door-to-door sales, it was easy for me because I was like, oh, like you're interested? Okay. Like, door to door, they hate you. And then the second thing was really learning paid traffic. My first goal when I started making money was I was doing everything organically, and, organic can be a grind, especially if they're not just coming straight to you. And there's different methodologies and things you can do. But what I found is like, at the end of the day, if I can pay for traffic, it just gives me a little more consistency and it gives me a little more peace of mind. And, so I paid all my money that I was earning to coaches to learn that. And so once I had those two things down, I really felt invincible, because I felt like no matter how bad things get, or if it's a down month or whatever, as long as I can pay for traffic, I can always have a successful business. So probably those two things.
Okay. Now, for somebody who's just starting out, let's say they want to get their feet wet with organic, raise some capital to run ads. What's one strategy they could use that worked well for you when you started?
Yeah. So, I'll just be honest. The main strategy I did, it was two things. I either would reach out on cold hashtags on IG. So fitness was easy, right? And this can be a little harder or maybe even easier for different niches. But for fitness, I just looked for people overweight. And my thought process was, hey, like they may not want my help, but we could make the argument they certainly need it, right? And so that was my thought process. So I would just reach out on hashtags, and I'd say something that's personable. I'd ask them like, what do you do for work? And then they tell me, and this would always be my transition. I'd say, what does it keep you busy? And, everyone on earth says yes. They're not like, no, I'm lazy. And then I would transition to like, oh, like, I bet like, that's cool. Like, does that make it hard to work out? Or, hey, does that make it hard to follow like a nutrition plan? Like I can relate. And then all of a sudden, like I'm into this like script, so to speak, or this fitness talk, but it sounds very natural. And that was something I've just learned, is like how to speak very naturally to people. So it'd be that way. And I'd set triage calls. For anyone listening, a triage call is kind of like a set call or a 10-minute call. And then I book a sales call. And then the other way was IG shout outs. And IG shout outs are a little bit of a mixed bag. Like I've been doing shout outs for a long time. And you'll get some trash with it. You'll get some like accounts that like are not great, but like the cost of traffic is so cheap that it's actually my highest ROI producing thing we do. So, out of all the millions and millions of dollars I've ran on Facebook, probably the highest ROI I get is from shout outs. Because if I spend, let's say, for example, I spend, 30 G's or 40 G's on shout outs, we'll make back, 300, 400, which to some people, they're like, really? And it's like, it's just so much volume. So those were the two biggest things I did. Is I just did shout outs, small, not 30 to 40 grand, but small amounts. And I just hustled, man. And I was so scared of going back to where I was that I just worked for a year for about 16 to 18 hours a day. I didn't go out. I didn't date. For me, like my reward was like sitting at home and eating a bucket of ice cream at the end of the week, because I was just so burnt out. So hopefully that's helpful. But yeah, that's really my strategy. That's all I did and nothing else.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful. So after you raised some capital, started running ads, I saw that one a million times where you like jumped off a table and you're like, what if you could be the king of your castle? So like what worked best? And I know that, you're on Facebook and YouTube, but what have you found so far that's been the best, especially with all the changes going on with Facebook?
Yeah. So, what's been cool this year, I hate to do it. Like, I feel like every interview I have recently, I bring him up, but I've been able to watch, Alex Hormozi closely, and we've become pretty good friends. I like to think we talk quite a bit. And, he made that book. It came out just the right time, right? It was the $100 million offers book. And until recently, I really had only been focusing on one business. And now I have some portfolio companies. And what's crazy is like when COVID hit, is probably the most profitable my coaching business has ever been, because I think everyone was like, hey, I want to transition online. As it's kind of come back to normal, it's still profitable, but you kind of see like there's more resistance, right? And so in terms of what's worked best for the coaching business, I would say the biggest thing has been driving stuff to Messenger. Like you really have to have conversations, at least we've noticed, because there's just so much competition in the coaching industry. There's so many options. And so that's really the only thing that's kept us at a high level. I think if we had to run everything straight to page for my coaching business, it just wouldn't be where it is today because the competition's so high and there's so much skepticism. Ironically, though, when I see some of my other offers, like I have a company that does like options trading and one does closing, like they train sales reps and place them. Those companies' cost per lead is like nothing. I mean, $1.50, $3 at scale. It's absurd. And so we can run all the traffic straight to page and it crushes. And so I only brought that up as an example of, I think part of it depends on your offer, but I would say the more competitive your offer is, the more you're going to want to drive stuff to conversations or, set calls or something where there's going to have to be some type of follow up with the lead generation, because most people, it's so competitive. They're like, yeah, I've seen like 10 guys, they sound just like you, and so that's kind of like the power of a good offer is I've seen that, live now where, one of our offers is getting 15x collected and we're not doing any lead. I mean, it's literally just, they sign up or they don't for a call and we just call them. I mean, that's the best business in the world is if you can keep it simplistic. But anyways, hopefully that kind of gives two sides of the coin. I think it depends on the offer, but for my main company, Elite CEOs, like we really love driving ads to Messenger because we can have conversations that just can beat so many objections you can't with a simple VSL. So.
Gotcha. So when did you make the transition from coaching people with their fitness to coaching fitness pros on how to get more clients? And how did that go?
Yeah, well, dude, so when I started my fitness business, I actually hated coaches. Like I had a deep loathing of coaches, and it's been a blessing because I think as you mature and get older, you always realize things are harder than they seem when you're not in someone else's shoes. So it's really easy to point, be like, oh, that guy's like, he's terrible what he does, F him. But it's like, until you're in their shoes and you're like doing, millions of dollars or at scale, it's easy to be small and say like, I have 10 clients, they all love me. But I think part of that was like eye-opening for me as I got older. But to get to the point, I had hired these coaches and they weren't in the fitness niche. And I just felt like the advice they were giving me wasn't good. And in hindsight, it still helped me. But, as a younger guy, you have a little bit of ego. You're spending a lot of money. You get pissed. And I just felt like, man, these guys suck. Like they're telling me this, they're telling me that. Like I'm working 18 hours a day. I'm not stupid. Like it's not working. And I was just really struggling to drive ads to an opt-in page in a webinar, and it just wasn't converting. I was getting like a 1-to-1 conversion. And I'm like, dude, I'm killing myself to make this money. I'm paying these coaches $10,000, $15,000 and nothing was happening. It was frustrating. And so once I started the Messenger component, that's right when ManyChat came out. You're young. So I don't know, you like probably just graduated high school. I'm just kidding, but you're young, right? You're probably like 20, 21, if that. Dude. Yeah. So like, I want to say it's like 4 or 5 years ago. So you're probably like 21, 22. And I started having crazy success. Like that's right when my stuff took off. And I remember I got my little ClickFunnels award. It's one of those back there. And I did $1 million a year in my fitness business. And just once people saw that, I think that really kind of started sending people towards me. So I had like 5 or 10 people who kept asking. I was like, dude, like, I really don't want to do business coaching. Like I don't like those guys, like blah, blah, blah. But I think, I saw the opportunity is like, dude, this is gonna be a multi-7-figure business. And so at some point I was like, I think the money was just too much for me to ignore as a younger guy. And I'm glad I did it now, but that was really kind of what pushed me into it. It wasn't something I planned. It just kind of fell on my lap. And then as that business took off, the revenue and the profit, because of the profit margin, was so high that I was just like, dude, like it doesn't make sense for me to try to run 2 businesses. Because one, I don't think I had the experience to do it at that time. And 2, you had to have 2 separate teams. And so I was trying to do both and hold both together. And it was just too much. So that's how I got into it. It was just more of people asking after I had success. And I think that's the best way to do it if you're going to do it. I'm not saying you have to, but when you've had success doing what you're doing, it's way easier to get people to listen. Cause like, yeah, dude, like I did that ever before I coached people. So it seems to give a little bit more credibility and people are a little more willing to listen. So
100%. So quick question to precede the next question. Sure. What's the highest monthly revenue you've had, at least in your main business?
Yeah. So if it's just a single business, the most we've had collected in a month was 1.8. And Yeah. So, I mean, you start adding other businesses or different offers, but yeah, for the coaching specifically, about 1.8 was the highest we hit.
That's incredible. And to hear that and to see the ClickFunnels Awards behind you and to hear, your whole story about like you went for the Lambos in Puerto Rico and like living the Miami penthouse
Yeah.
lifestyle. I wanted to just ask more like, it goes deeper than business because I've read your posts and a lot of times they get very emotional and very down to like real life. So what were some of the lessons you learned from that, like having everything and then just kind of like getting rid of a lot of it and some of the, the struggles that you opened up about on Facebook?
Yeah. I mean, I think, I don't know if I got the right word on the tip of my tongue, but I think what really drove me was like resentment of people and an ability to prove I was worth something. And I think you hear a lot of entrepreneurs talk about this, where people make fun of you or they doubt you. And so one of the main motivators is kind of like ego and resentment and kind of proving people wrong. And so you drive and you push, and it's a very powerful motivator to begin with. But once you kind of reach the top, so to speak, and you've kind of made your point, you realize like two things. Like one, they don't really care. They weren't watching. And they even, in most cases, they don't even know that you felt that way. And then two, you realize like you still feel very empty. And so you're like, well, shit, like, you really tell yourself this story that once you get there, things will change or you'll feel different. So when you get there and you don't feel any different, it's kind of disappointing. And so for me, I just always wanted to grow up not having to kind of budget. Like my parents would have fights or argue about that growing up. And it was like, we have this budget, we have to stick to the budget. And so for me, like kind of getting to a point where in Miami, I was living in like a $7 million penthouse and I had a, way too expensive Lamborghini. And, I had a lot of attention from different girls and there's a lot of cute girls down here. Like it felt like that was going to be the pinnacle. And then I just didn't feel like I really had anyone or people who understood me. And, I felt like I was always just super bitter towards people. Like, it even can trickle down to like just how you treat others because, like, let's say like a client is not happy with something or whatever. And you just have this aptitude, like, oh, why is he such a, piece of, this, or like, why is he so soft? Like I did that. Like, why can't he do that? And so you start just becoming like really hard and like, almost like competitive with everyone. And then it's just like, it's not a good feeling and nobody really cares. I brought up Alex earlier, like Alex really helped me through a dark time. I don't think he really knew he was helping me because I didn't feel like there were guys my age that could relate, that were, doing the amount of revenue I was doing and maybe going through what I was going through. And so I think when it's all said and done, a lot of what we do doesn't matter. And what I mean by that is like, I think being a good person matters. I think whether you're religious or not, like, treating people right matters, but I don't think like what we do for work or like where we live or what we travel in or what we drive, like it doesn't really matter. And so I think I had to have a real look in the mirror and just think about like, what do I really like to do or what do I enjoy? And instead of like trying to come up with a reason for everything, which really led me to a lot of depression, is I just was like, hey, like I like working out and I just do. And like, I like to build businesses and I just do. And that's okay. And there doesn't really have to be a reason to it. And so hopefully I answered the question. I don't mean to go too off track, but did that get to what you were asking, or did I just kind of muddle through that?
Yeah, that's good advice. I'm just really trying to help people kind of like see what it's like before they plan on getting there, right? Because it's like a lot of times people start out, they make their first 10K a month, they keep going, maybe they're at 50, 100, and they think like, man, once I get to that next point, like everything's going to be fine. And I just wanted to like have some level of awareness for anybody who's listening and to realize like you really have to enjoy what you do. And it sounds like for you, just being able to work out and being able to build businesses is kind of the thing that keeps you going now, rather than those external things that don't come from within.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, like now that I think sometimes you have to do things to see that it's done. Cause I think something that I pride myself in is like, I try to listen to other people's advice, but sometimes you just have to do it yourself, right? Because you hear it from other people. And I had this really bad stigma when I would just say, oh, well, that person, they just say that because they're poor. Like I wouldn't say that out loud, or on social media, but that's what I would think, just being honest. And so when I finally had those things and I was like, man, maybe they were kind of right about this. You just realize, like, even if like it brings you status or people admire you for it, like that's not what you want people to admire you for. It's not a good feeling to like feel like people are only around you for what you have rather than who you are. And so I think for me, like dating really helped because it brought me like, especially Miami, it's a bigger city. So if you have nice things, it draws attention from very good looking girls. And I had this girl I was on and off with, and I think like kind of going on and off and like kind of being alone and not feeling like I had people was a good thing for me, because it made me realize like what's more important. And I think at the end of the day, dude, it's like, well, all we really have is like what we enjoy, like our hobbies, what gives us passion, and then like people. And the more that I try to align my life that way, and I just try to help others, and I try to, spend time with my good friends, like I feel more fulfilled. And ironically, what happens is then you usually do better in business versus you're just solely focused and you're just selfish as hell and you're always focused on your bottom line. So hopefully that was something helpful. Sorry if that's off track. I get a little talkative.
No, that's perfect. Sometimes the best conversations are the ones that kind of go off track and go deep. And yeah, I can relate to a lot of that too. Because my first mentor, my like very first client, I got very close with. He told me, he was like, "Hey, Troy, nobody cares." And I was like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, they don't.
Nobody cares. It doesn't matter what you do. Everybody has their own thing they're focused on. If you mess up or if you get something nice or if you try to impress somebody, they might think about it for 5 minutes and then they're back to thinking about what they were thinking about. And it was kind of a comforting thing to free me up and make me realize like, hey, if I mess up, like nobody cares. And I looked at it from that perspective. And this is coming from me. And, I probably wasn't as successful in baseball as you were in football, but being able to just kind of like growing up, I put all my emphasis in like self-worth and how I performed. And then in college, it kind of all came crashing down because I got the yips, which is like, I could hardly even throw a baseball at that point, which was incredibly embarrassing. But all those things, like I'm thankful I went through that stuff now. Like I would not wish that on my worst enemy, but I'm thankful I went through it because it taught me so much. So that's what I was most excited to talk about, because I think not enough people talk about it. So, thank you for opening up about all that.
Yeah, of course, man. Happy to.
Yeah. So now that you've kind of, made it past that and you know exactly what you want to do. Well, I mean, I guess none of us ever know exactly, but you've kind of got your path lined up. You're like, you know what? I like building businesses. I like working out. So what does your business look like now? Like how many team members do you have? Is everybody in Miami? Are they remote? Just, what is Elite CEO like right now?
Yeah. So Elite CEOs will fluctuate probably, anywhere between, I want to say like 50 to 70 people, if you include like all the contractors and like remote individuals. We're all remote. We probably, I don't know, sometimes we make the argument we can make more if we're all in person. I've heard those arguments, but I just don't like, I just don't like really want to do that either. Like it wouldn't be worth it to me, even if we made a little bit more. Plus you could also make the argument the other way, overhead, stuff like that. But yeah, I'd say in between there. And then, now the goal for me is like probably over the next year or so is going to be, I'm going to start making the transition out as the face and really just be an owner and have more portfolio companies. I already have 4 others and they all do very well. I could just live off that easily, more than enough from that. But it's like, I think that's the next phase for me. It's kind of like bittersweet, I think, because like being super involved in the day to day and like helping run the business is fun. And I get to be around the people, but I just know like if I never get out of that phase, like I'm not going to continue to grow. And I really value like personal growth, right? Like it's more about like what I become as I build these businesses versus like, the money. And like, even today it's crazy because we just like right before this call, we had like a issue with a client and the client like going off, and like in the past, the way I would have handled it compared to how I did today is just like night and day difference. Like I just was super, like what I wanted to say and what I said are very different. Right. And so like I used to say exactly what I thought in the past. And so I handled it a lot better and it was resolved pretty quick. And the guy actually ended up like almost like apologizing. And like, he's like, hey, like, can this be fixed and rectified and stuff? And so like that's the stuff like I'm more proud about when it comes down to it, is like, just like my growth as a person. And that's really what I like about building businesses, because to build great businesses and like hire the right people, train people, build great culture, and make them stand on their own without you, like that's hard. But it's fun when you do it the right way, because not only can you grow yourself, but like what's really rewarding for me, I think, is like, sorry, this again, I went on a tangent. I'm sorry, dude. But to wrap up is it's fun to see like other people grow. It's fun to like help other people hit their goals. So to answer your question, we got about like 60, 70 people. And then we got the other portfolio companies. Sorry, I went on a tangent, but I'm in the fields. So
no, that's perfect. And yeah, that's really cool. Your team is about 10 times bigger than mine, but at some point, it's just like, there's so many things I could do. And it's just a matter of like focusing. And
yeah. And dude, there's nothing wrong keeping it small. Like I think the smaller the team is, the better. It's just like, it just, when it gets to certain levels, you might need certain things. And like, a team member for me could also be like, a VA that makes $5 an hour. So it's not always these massive expenses, but small is better, and profit is better than revenue. And so just as you're growing, like keep those things in mind. Is like, revenue is typically an ego number. Like someone's like, I'm doing 5 million a month. But at the end of the day, all that really matters is like how much profit you take home. And then, what your team's going to care about is what they get paid. And as long as those two things are in alignment, you'll make a lot of money. I think you'll be really happy. Because for a long time, it's like, it can be driven by ego. You can really just be like, I want to hit this number, and you'll hit like this a certain number, and your profit's like 5%, and it's not worth it, So
yeah, definitely. And going back to your last point too, and I'm just like always excited when I get up in the morning. And I think that's always like a really good compass to judge, like, am I doing the right thing? Am I excited when I get up? Mm-hmm. So one question I had too. So the other day, I'm in Denver right now. I went to a Rockies game. Given that I used to play baseball, anytime I kind of like step near like a professional field, I still have that thing in the back of my head that's like, you should be out there. Like, why aren't you doing something about it? Why are you running a business? You need to go to the gym. You need to go to the batting cage. You need to practice.
Yeah.
Do you ever get that when you just look at like either football or just like professional, like powerlifters or anything like that? Do you ever feel sometimes like you're wanting to get pulled back into what you used to do?
That's a good question, dude. And I think this varies for everyone. I can only speak for myself. When I finished sports, I think one of the things I was most proud of is when I knew that day came. I felt good because I felt like I'd done everything I could do. And so from a very young age, the way I attack business now is how I attack sports. And so I would put in some days, 6 to 9 hours a day during the summer before high school. And then in college, I would still do the same thing, 6 to 8 hours a day, film, training, weight room. And I never had an issue being one of the strongest guys on the team or one of the faster ones. But I just think genetically there were guys who just, genetically would do nothing and be more skilled than me. And so, yeah, I miss it. I think that's fair. But to be honest, man, I think I took it as far as I could go. And I think there's a lot of satisfaction to be said when you put your all into something and it doesn't work out, because it's not about the things, that we accomplish more times. It's about the things we regret that we didn't do, that we didn't try. And so I really just try to live my life with no regrets, where, I go all out. And if the pieces don't fit, it's like, I can live with that, and so I miss it, but I think luckily that was a great feeling I had. And that's kind of what drives me as well, is like, I'm always trying to really do my best, because it just is a better feeling. Like if you fail, but you did your best, and like, we know what our best is. The thing is a lot of times people say they're doing their best. It's like, dude, that's not your best. Like you could go so much harder than that. Right. And so I think sometimes that's what's driven me to where I'm at. I think also at times, I have to learn to pull that back. And I think that's what my girlfriend's really helped me with, is like, she kind of brings that balance into my life. She's like, hey, Tanner, like, you don't have to do a 24-hour workday. Like there's more to life than money. And I'm grateful to her for that. But that's what's kind of driven me, is like, I always am just like, I could do more. I could be better. I could do a better job. And so hopefully that answers your question, but I think there's satisfaction when you do your best, student, and it doesn't work out. So for you, I don't know your whole story, but if you did your best and there's stuff outside of your control, I don't think there's any shame in that. I think we only feel shame, or we can be a little, like feel kind of depressed about it when we didn't give it our all. And so, I can't speak for your situation, but that's how I feel about mine. Yeah.
That's really helpful for me personally. I appreciate that, because it's like at the end of the day, we all know like if we put in our best or if we could.
Yeah.
And something that each person has to internalize and be really honest about.
Yeah. And dude, like I can't speak for baseball, but I'll tell you in football, we had a guy, I mean, this was like so helpful for me. Like I would play against these athletes and I'd be like, man, this guy's not better than me. This guy's not better than me. I was like, man, like who, like what do these people see in these players or this player? And then we had this guy come from Ghana and he's 6'8". He's in the NFL right now, a Pro Bowler. His name's Iggy Ansah. Came from Ghana and he was on the track team, and the coaches threw him with me to lift with. They're just like, hey, work out with Chidester. He's a beast. Like he'll get you in his chair. Like, all right, whatever. And this guy, the first thing he said, I was like, he had a little bit of an accent and stuff. I was like, what do you do? And he's like, I'm on the track team. I thought he was messing with me, right? Because football guys are just always messing with each other. I was like, yeah, dude, whatever. All right. He's like, yeah, I run the 100. And you got to remember, this guy's 6'8", 280. So he's a freak. And he looks like he's flexing all the time. So, I've worked for years to squat. Like I'm squatting close to 600 pounds. And I'm like a 200, maybe 20 pound linebacker at the time. And this guy gets under a bar and he's never lifted. I'm like, dude, are you sure? He's like, yeah. And he just reps this thing. And it was like in that moment. And then I saw him run down the field faster than all the other guys on the team. And it was in that moment, I was like, those are the guys who play in the NFL. And 2 years later, he had played 6 games in college as a starter. He was the pick in the draft. And so it's like that really humbled me to really like, one, feel good about my efforts, but two, just like, no, I wasn't making an excuse. Cause it was like, dude, there was nothing I could have done to match this guy in physical strength and speed. And I did everything I could think of. So anyways, hopefully like that really helped me. Cause I was really hard on myself. And to this day, sometimes I am, where I'm like, dude, like I should be doing better. Like I should be like farther ahead, et cetera. But I don't know, man, that was good for me, at least from a sports perspective. Cause I mean, he's a freak, man. Like it was just unbelievable what this guy could do. So
yeah, I could relate to that for sure, because like my ultimate goal as a pitcher was to throw 90 miles an hour. Like that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And whenever somebody talked about genetics or freaks of nature, I would just think that person was making excuses.
Yeah. Same.
It's like I spend like literal hours per day studying video and then throwing, like doing this drill and that one and going to the weight room, like doing way more work than everybody else on my team. Just to be transparent. I love you guys who are listening, but I worked harder. Even if I wasn't successful. And then you have other guys who like don't spend a minute watching video. And they go out there. There was one guy on my team, he'd smoke and then he'd go pitch and he threw faster than I did. And it's like, I see guys in the big leagues that are throwing 100 miles an hour and then there's like a couple faults here and there. I'm like, if I did that, I'd have a second Tommy John surgery.
Yeah.
So it's pretty crazy, but
yeah.
Now I guess the last question, you mentioned that your girlfriend's kind of like helping you like see the other aspects of life outside of money. So 2 questions. First one, like, do you enjoy anything like outside of business? Like what activities or hobbies do you have? And the second thing is like, how do you view money? Is it just like a scoreboard against your previous self? Or is it you're just trying to go invest in things? Or like, how do you view it?
Yeah. So two pieces of that question. So money, dude, like I just don't care about it that much anymore. I will always make a lot of money and I'm going to continue to grow businesses. But like I said, it's like, I think it's twofold. I think one, like I enjoy the growth. Like this year, I think I've grown more personally and like learning how to really build a team and build culture, especially as I'm becoming an owner, right? So I can't go do the sales calls. I can't like hop on calls with people. I have to restrain myself. Like, here's a problem. I know how to fix it, but I need to let other people do it. So that's really helped me personally because it's really teaching me how to be a good leader and how to create businesses without having to do all the work. In terms of money, like I just never want to have to worry about what I want to do. Like I just want to make, for most people, the amount I want to make, I think they'll think is absurd. It's probably more than most people need, but it's like, I just always want to live my life to where like, if my family needs help, I can help them. If I want to contribute to a cause, I can. I don't want to just have enough to have a good lifestyle. I want to have enough to where it's like, if someone in my family needs a job, they need a house, they have cancer, like I have so much money that like, no big deal. I got you. That's really, besides that though, it's the growth. And then just with like my girlfriend, like, I think she's more balanced. And I think a lot of times this is what friends can do, especially us very like driven, mission driven guys and entrepreneurial guys, is like, she's driven as well. And I really enjoy that. And that's part of what attracts me to her. But she also has like that balance of where, she really kind of pulls me back and she's like, yo, Tanner, like, if you make all this money, you're doing all these things, when it's all said and done, you're not going to care. And she's like, you need to make sure you're making time for me. You're making time for your friends. And so don't get me wrong, I still work a ton, especially like Monday through Friday. Like I'll get up at 4:30, and between gym and work, I really pretty much work till 7. But she kind of brings me that balance back and makes sure I don't go too overboard. And she kind of keeps me level headed. And I think that's been helpful for me because I can work and I can work and I can work and I can work. And like, I'll just keep working. I'll keep pushing, and it doesn't matter what goal I hit. Like I'll keep going. And so I don't know how it is with you and Julia, but I can say for me, like that's been very helpful. And the type of girl she gives me good feedback. She's not like a pushover. And so I've never done girls who kind of, I felt, I don't know what the right way to say it, but I felt like they kind of needed me, and like they needed my money. They needed my like support. And with her, what I enjoy is like, I don't feel like she needs me. And so I think that allows her, I might be wrong on this, but this is my perception, is like, it allows her to be a little bit more honest with me, because she's like, yeah, dude, like you're cool. You make money, but like, I don't need you. And so I feel like we have really a good connection that way, and like honest conversations. So yeah, hopefully I answered the question, man, but that's my take. Yeah.
Yeah. You've been answering all the questions very deeply. So I appreciate. Now somebody's listening to this and they're like, wow, that was really good. I want to get some help from Tanner. Do they go to eliteceos.com? Like where can they find you?
Yeah, like 2 places, like either message me on social, like Instagram or Facebook, just my first and last name. Not too many guys name that, or eliteceos.com is good. It's kind of our main website where they can see like some of the results we got with clients, what we do, stuff like that. And so, yeah, man, those would be 2 best places. And like, I'm in a good spot in my life. I'm really doing my best to try to like be a good person, try to help people as much as I can, even with my content lately. Hopefully, I don't know if anyone watches my content, but like, I'm just trying to lead with that, like give a lot of value. And so like, even doing this with you is great because like, in the past, I don't know, I'll say no to everything. And I'm just like, do I get paid for this? And so it's been fun. So yeah, if anyone wants to connect, that'd be the 2 best places.
Yeah. And if you're thinking about it, just do it. Like go to Tanner's Facebook. Every post is like a mini podcast in itself. And if you enjoyed this, you enjoy those. So Tanner, thank you for being here. And if you want to listen to any future episodes of the Secrets of Scale podcast, you can go to my YouTube channel, Troy Ericson, and give it a listen. So Tanner, thanks again. And
thanks for having me, man.
On episode 16 next time.